Let's go inside the Fox Sports 102.9 studios with Chase Robinson for WKXX Live.
Good Monday afternoon. Welcome into WKXX Live on Monday, August the 1st. Exciting day. As we told you last week, we had some big news to pass along, and we always are wanting to bring you the best content we can, the best local sports talk we can. And I'm excited today to introduce a voice you'll be hearing every afternoon here on WKXX Live. Joining me, we've had him on as a guest so many times, but we're excited to welcome on Gerhard Mathangani here to WKXX Live. Welcome.
Absolutely, Chase. Thank you so much. This is something that we've talked about. It's just in passing for a long time, and it's great to actually be able to actually manifest it and be able to put it here. And our schedules worked out perfectly. And
Yes.
as you said, I've been a guest on this program plenty of times, and I've been able to enjoy this work from afar. And then now to sit here in the seat every day, I couldn't be more thrilled.
Yeah, and we had a chance to do a show a couple of weeks ago together.
That's right.
Together at SEC Media Days. We have done numerous TV shows together over the years, back when we were both in TV together. So really excited to have you a part of our team here, to have you on the show covering what we love to talk about, and that is local sports, college sports, and into professional. So this is going to be a lot of fun.
It really will be. And we're entering a really good time of the year
Yes.
as well, as football season gets cranked up. And that's obviously the bread and butter, so to speak, of what we've done, especially here in the South, just in general, with high school football, college football, and with all that, just starting to crank up, and practices and training camps on all three levels, high school, college, and professional leagues are all, getting their start. Everybody has hope.
Yeah.
Everybody has optimism. And I'm kind of sitting right there in that same boat with the same hope and optimism.
Yeah, and with it being August the 1st, I mean, we'll have football on TV Thursday night. The Hall of Fame game will be on. So that'll be kind of the first football game. And then we're, 18 days away from high school football kicking off. And then 26 days away from Jacksonville State kicking off, and 33 days from Alabama and Auburn. So, I mean, it's right here. And practice starting. We had media days last week. We'll kind of get to that on the high school front. But what an exciting time as we finally get to August, and it's almost showtime.
It certainly is. I think to me, one of the most exciting things is that, obviously with every team, there's a different storyline. And I think whether you're talking about high school, college, or pros, you have certain thoughts about certain teams going in, but rarely at the end of the year are we right. Sometimes we are on some things, but rarely do we have everything put together perfectly. And one of the, I guess, best analogies I could use is whenever we do the voting for the predicted order of finish in SEC Media Days. We do it every year, and I think the media, last year we were technically right. We can take a somewhat of a victory lap there, picking Alabama to win the SEC, which they ended up winning the SEC tournament or SEC championship. But obviously Georgia ended up winning the national championship. We have these thoughts going into it, but even last year, I think it was like 9 of the last 25 times we predicted it in the media, it's been right. And I think the same thing goes on the high school level, same thing on the professional level. So to break it all down before the season, and then to see the way that it all shakes out after the season, to me adds that dynamic that makes it really special, really fun, because we could do all the predictions that we want on the front end, but to see it actually play out in real time is really awesome.
Yeah, we've got a lot to cover on the show today. And a reminder, all of our guests appear on the All-American HVAC Service hotline. Keith Niebuhr will join us coming up in hour number 2, auburnlive.com. We'll talk some Auburn football recruiting. I had a chance last week to talk with Jacksonville State head coach Rich Rodriguez, so we'll let you listen in to that coming up in just a little bit as well. But a lot to dive into. Here's some things you may hear us discuss today. Kind of a hot topic today we'll get to in just a second. Deshaun Watson has just been handed down a 6-game suspension. So we'll look at that here in just a minute. We mentioned college football teams, some of them beginning fall camp today. High school teams start practice today, gearing up for the season. We'll talk a little Braves baseball. Good weekend for the Braves sweep of the Diamondbacks. There is a new face on the Braves squad here, as Ehire Adrianza is back with the Braves in a trade for outfielder Trey Harris. And so we'll get to all of that as we move through the show today. We do welcome in your phone calls at 256-413-1029, 256-413-1029. Whether you're listening to us on Fox Sports 1029, WKXX.com, and we've got the YouTube live stream going on today as well. So several options there to take us in. Also, I'm going to be giving away a family 4-pack of tickets to the World Deer Expo coming up August 12th through 14th there at the BJCC in Birmingham. So be listening later on this hour. I'll give you a chance to win some World Deer Expo tickets. So we've got a lot to cover, but I want to first hit on Deshaun Watson. That was the big news today. We've been kind of waiting to see what happens, and today was the day. 6-game suspension. That has been all the talk today.
It certainly has. And I think the reason why is because we did not know. We were talking earlier about predicting. We did not know where the disciplinary official, it's a new one, and it's a new position in the NFL. And it's Sue Robinson, who has a long career as a judge, not in sports, but she has a long career judging people based on crimes, whether it's, things that convicted crimes as far as criminal crimes, lawsuits. In this case, it's a not a criminal lawsuit because that was overturned by the grand jury, or it didn't go through with the grand jury. But this is civil cases that they're dealing with, and the way that the NFL should handle it from a disciplinary standpoint. I think the reason why this got so much attention is because, number one, he didn't play all of last year, large part due to this, and then secondly, with Deshaun Watson, he's a top 5 quarterback the last time we saw him play. And then the Cleveland Browns went ahead and signed him for $230 million, all of it fully guaranteed. And the way they structured this contract made it seem like, hey, if he's suspended for the entire year, we're at least financially going to be able to take that hit. And they didn't want that hit to continue on throughout. So the fact that she said 6, and the fact that the NFL Players Association has already said they're not going to appeal it, even though Deshaun Watson and his attorneys wanted 0 games, it looks like they'll take the 6, which is a far cry from what the NFL wanted. They wanted a whole year, or they were willing to settle on 12 games and a large fine up to $8 million. The fact that Sue Robinson landed on 6 lends you to believe that she knows something that we might not know right now, or just the way that she thought that the way that this should be handled, and the fact that it's a woman, I think is also really telling as well. I'm really interested to see what the NFL says after this, to see their stance on it. But it is interesting that it's 6, because I was thinking going into it won't be less than 8, maybe 10 with the 17-game regular season. The fact that it's 6 does seem really light to me. Yeah,
and I saw a lot when this first came out this morning. I saw a lot of people saying, well, Calvin Ridley got the year suspension with his gambling, and then here you are with Deshaun Watson getting 6 games. It just doesn't match. I think a lot of people are going to continue to go back to that, just because, and this is not the first time we've seen a ruling come down that does not look like a previous one.
Correct. And this all really started, I think, with Ray Rice back in the day, and the video of the elevator stuff came out, and I think he got 1 game, maybe 2 games at the time. I'll have to go back and look, but it just seems like we've had several instances in the NFL where punishment doesn't really fit crime. And I think we saw the same thing. And on Calvin Ridley, I understand trying to keep the betting world separate. However, these two worlds have really merged. And the NFL, with the tie-in they already have with all the gambling, and the fact that Calvin Ridley was betting on games he wasn't even playing in, and he was betting on his team to win. If you were to bet anything, you would think it would be that. So the fact they came in so heavy-handed, I think, was to maybe deter all the other players from doing it. Well, I don't know if 6 games is much of a deterrent for what Deshaun's going through. Obviously, this is a really egregious case with, I think 25 women overall that have filed civil lawsuits, and it looks like he settled 20. 4 more, 3 of the 4, according to his attorney today, will settle here pretty shortly. So it just seems to me that time after time, as you said, seems to me the punishment has not fit the crime. And this to me is another one of those examples where you're left scratching your head on one judgment as compared to another one. But the NFL can come back and say, hey, we took a third party completely independent, and this is her job to do this. And it's up to Sue Robinson to do this. And this was her ruling.
Yeah, that was the big news, hot topic coming out of today, as that was released this morning. So it'll be interesting to see what comes next there with Deshaun Watson. We'll grab a timeout here and come back, talk a little Braves baseball on the other side. Good weekend for the Braves. Trade deadline tomorrow. We'll discuss that coming up next. It is a new month of August. We bring on a new sponsor here on WKXX Live. We're brought to you in part by Frank's Roofing. Our studio had a roof leak a couple of months ago. We called Frank because the estimate was free, the price was fair, and his crew was on it the next day. The best part, they were professional, courteous. They fixed the problem in one visit. They did not leave a mess. Do what we did. Trust Frank's Roofing for your shingle, metal, or flat roof repair or replacement. Call 256-458-8531 for a free estimate. That is Frank's Roofing. Much more WKXX Live next here on Fox Sports 102.9.
Do you have diabetes? Want to improve your blood sugar?
We are back here on WKXX Live with Chase and Gerhard here on this Monday afternoon. So glad you are joining us. Chase Robinson here, Gerhard Mathangani with us as well as we add him to the team here on WKXX Live. We are your home for Atlanta Braves baseball and had a good weekend. Friday night, got a 5-2 win. Saturday, got a 6-2 win over the Diamondbacks. And then yesterday, pitching duel, but it was Austin Riley coming through with the walk-off double, and the Braves get a 1-0 win, again, over the Arizona Diamondbacks. Got a 2-game series with the Phillies starting tomorrow, and then you have the Mets for 5 games. So it's a big week for the Braves. But a great month of July, Gerhard, for the Braves. They had a really good June, and I was wondering if it was going to carry over into July. They lost some here and there, but pretty good July, but a really good July for Austin Riley as he continues to just kind of push this Braves team forward.
Exactly. And he's one of the guys, obviously, that's getting his name up there as far as MVP recognition, but he's been blistering, like just incredible this month. 11 home runs, 24 RBI, batting over 400. And when you get in games like you did yesterday, you get in games where you just need a big bat to come through when you can't score more than 2-3 runs. Yesterday, they only needed 1 run to end up getting the victory. You need that guy, and he's been that guy for the Braves this year. And it just seems that they've been able to find that. For the last 2 seasons, they've been able to find that 1 or 2 guys that goes on a stretch, that goes on a nice little run. And he, to me, has been that guy. But you're right. Ever since the All-Star break, a lot of times teams do usually 1 or 2 things. They'll either take a while to get their momentum going, or they carry the momentum that they had in the first half of the season. Looks like the Braves did that. And they had an incredible month of June, as you mentioned. And so far, having a really good month of July and then going into August, they need to obviously keep their focus going into it. And obviously the schedule will look, I mean, once they look at the schedule, you understand, hey, we have to play some of our best baseball and be able to get as many W's as we possibly can. Obviously they'll play these 2 games against the Phillies, and then it's the top team in the division. They're still within striking distance. They're sitting at just 3 games back, but Austin Riley's been sensational. And how about Kyle Wright?
Yeah.
We saw him at Vanderbilt a few years ago. We knew he was going to be a great prospect, but I did not think that, this early in his career, he'd be leading the entire league, leading the National League in wins. And so to have a pitcher like him, to have a bat like Kyle, or to have a bat like Austin Riley, the Braves really clicking on all cylinders and really at a good time. And these next, I would say, about 2 weeks are going to be really, really important for this club.
Yeah, you're right. And the Mets are 3 games up on the Braves. You got them for 5 games. Which is going to be a really, really important stretch here, like you said, to get some wins, to cut into that. But the Mets are playing really good baseball, and you've got to hand it to them. I mean, this is not one of those years where in July things just crumble for the Mets. Now, it looks like they're going to kind of sustain what they've been doing all season on into, August, September, these really important, parts of baseball. So I'm excited to see what the Braves can do against them. I'm excited to see what happens between now and tomorrow at 6 p.m. or 5 p.m., whenever the trade deadline is. Braves already get Adrianza back, which I think is a good upgrade. Is going to be good at second base. He can also play some left field as well. But I have full confidence in the Braves in these games. But it would be nice to get maybe a bat, maybe an arm, something to because we saw what they did last year, what the organization did with bringing in who they did at the trade deadline. A bunch of guys who, didn't fit anywhere else, got hot at the right time. I don't know if the Braves can do that again this year, because a lot of that was just they got hot at the right time. But I'd like to see some other pieces in place to kind of be able to do that.
I agree. And I think that obviously getting, just some fresh blood in the organization too really helps. Even if it's, just being able to get a guy, a different voice, maybe a guy from a different culture that can come in and talk to the team. When you lose a leader like Freddie Freeman, you try to search for that leadership. You try to search for that voice, whether it's the trade deadline, whether it's guys that are already in the clubhouse, and especially when you're not running away with this division. If you take the Mets out, the Braves would be in a really commanding lead. However, they're still looking up in the standings, which I think is helpful in these kind of months because it keeps you on your toes to be able to play great baseball. And the fact that the Mets are still going to add another great pitcher, or at least great as far as his resume goes. Jacob deGrom is set to make his debut coming up really shortly. So you have a team that's already ahead of you in the overall standings, and then they add one of the better pitchers since the last time that we saw him. So you would have to figure that, hey, this is going to be a Mets team that we'll have to contend with all the way through August, all the way through September. And then as obviously one of the top teams, I think going into the playoffs. I mean, I'm friends with one prominent Mets fan and a lot of other ones, and they're just kind of waiting for the shoe to drop. I think this year, this is not that team. I think they're here for the long run. They have great pitching, great hitting. Obviously, they have a lot of flair with Francisco Lindor. So if you're the Braves, I think that they need to be able to keep up with that energy. And so it'll be exciting to see what the front office does before the trade deadline tomorrow.
That's a good way to put it. Keep up with that. I mean, you can't get too far behind now because you're in August. I mean, right. August, September, this is when people start watching baseball. People don't watch it in June and July. People start watching it now and keeping up with it now. So this is very, very important time for baseball. So we'll see if the Braves can at least keep up with the Mets, even if they don't surpass them this week in that series, if they can just stay close by, keep within an arm's distance there. We mentioned the trade deadline, and of course, day before the trade deadline, and a lot of names being thrown around, a lot of potential guys in big trades. Who do you think could be some of the biggest names we see, biggest trades we see over the next 24 hours or so?
It'll be really interesting to see what happens with Juan Soto. Obviously, he had the deal where I think it was $440 million over 15 years. People will say, well, how do you turn that down? And I think that once you started to read the language in the contract, that the annual salary per year did not really match up to that. And it looks like the Nationals are willing to make a blockbuster deal with a team, and some teams that have been thrown out there, teams like the White Sox, teams like the Cleveland Guardians, that might have enough in return to get a guy like Juan Soto. And his agent, Scott Boras, and Boras is notorious for wanting his guys to go to the market and be able to have these big market teams, make these huge offers for him. And I think the Nationals kind of understand that. They made their pitch, they made their ploy. He said no, and they don't want to take him to market. They want him to be able they want themselves to be able to have some pieces that they can bring back in position for him. A name that has quietly kind of emerged over the last, I would say, 14 days is Shohei Ohtani from the Angels. And when you take a look at what he's done, and the comparison point starts at Babe Ruth, it seems like, why would the Angels get rid of him? You already have Mike Trout, but there's some quiet whispers that he could be on the move, that the Angels will pick up the phone and at least listen to offers for him. And the team that I keep hearing about is the St. Louis Cardinals. So we'll see if those two huge names will move. To me, Juan Soto feels like one that's probably more than likely to go, and I think Ohtani might be more of a thing, more of a distant thing. I think that the Angels will be smart to keep him, but if they just get a crazy haul, I don't see how you can't at least entertain the phone calls, because it looks like the Angels once again will be out of the picture as far as playoffs go.
Whoever could pick up Ohtani, I mean, that'd be a huge pickup for whoever gets him, just based off what he has done and what his potential is.
All-star level, both pitching and hitting. And last year, obviously, he set the mark for the entire league. And so you just have a guy that's just, we haven't seen this kind of talent probably since Babe Ruth. I mean, it's hard to talk about just a guy that is all-star production. I could see a guy that can come out there and, you pitched in college, you can go out there and throw a couple innings. He's a legitimate starter and an all-star level guy on the mound, and he's a legit power hitter. He's one of those guys where I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he's on the New York Yankees in a few years. But as far as this trade deadline goes, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what the Angels will do with him, because just like with Soto, if they get a deal that's good enough that they feel like, hey, the pieces are in place here, and instead of him going to the market, we can trade him and get something back for him. I think both the Angels and the the Nationals will be listening.
Yeah, and that's going to be interesting to follow, see where some of these guys end up. We will be all over Braves over the next 24 hours or so if they make any more moves. But again, the Braves did trade outfielder Trey Harris for E.R. Adrianza. The Robinson Cano has been sent to an assignment as well. So Adrianza, I think, will be a good piece for the Braves stepping in to the organization once again. He's worn a Braves uniform before, and he is back with the organization now. We'll get to some more baseball talk later on, but I want to shift gears to college football coming up next. Had a chance to talk with Jacksonville State coach Rich Rodriguez last week at JSU Media Day. We'll play that for you. But right now, I want to give you a chance to win a family 4-pack to the World Deer Expo. That is coming up August 12th through 14th at the BJCC. That is a Friday through Sunday. These tickets will allow access for one of those days. So you can win a family 4-pack to the World Deer Expo. To the first caller, 256-413-1029. That is 256-413-1029 for a family 4-pack of World Deer Expo tickets.
Surge Staffing has hundreds of immediate openings, all
Welcome back in. It is WKXX Live with Jason Gerhard here on this Monday afternoon, 2:31. Last week, Jacksonville State had their media day. I had a chance to spend a little one-on-one time with head coach Rich Rodriguez. And, Gerhard, it's new year, new day at JSU. They've been used to Coach Gross, and anytime you have a new staff, I mean, you can expect personnel changes. There was a big overhaul in players over the summer, transferring out, some transferring in, and you have to expect that with a new staff. There was a kind of an abnormal amount of interchange with personnel this year, but I think it's going to. I think it's going to be good for JSU as they move up to have a guy who's been there, done that. He's been on, I think, just about every level of college football that you can.
Exactly. And he's one of these guys. Coach Rich Rodriguez is a guy that most people know in the college football space because of his time in Michigan and West Virginia. But he's spent a long time, obviously, as an offensive coordinator. He was obviously at Louisiana Monroe before taking this Jacksonville State job. So he understands, in my opinion, what it takes to get a program from one level to the next. And I think that was part of the mentality for JSU when they made this hire. It's like, we're not just hiring a guy that can coach football. We're trying to hire a guy that could take us from one level to the next and do that as seamlessly as possible. I know Old Dominion did this not too long ago. They ended up going from the FCS to the FBS. And there's a lot of little things that you have to be able to put in place, both off the field and on it. And I think that they feel that Coach Rod is a part of that, and he can help Jacksonville State take it to that next level. Now, this gap year will be really interesting, not just from an on-field perspective, but also from the off-field perspective. And then JSU is obviously coming off of what they determine is not necessarily one of their best seasons, coming off that 5-6 season. Obviously, started the season off with a bang, but then they're used to success there at Jacksonville State. So I think with Coach Rich Rodriguez, it's hey, can we get our culture back to where we need it to be, and can we start taking a step in the right direction as it relates to where we're trying to go? And obviously that's Conference USA, that's FBS football, and that's playing up there with the big dogs, quote unquote. And I think that they think that he's the guy for that. But obviously in this these first few days of training camp, they'll find out specifically, what Coach Rich Rod is about. We saw what happened after the spring. There'll be a lot of new faces on the roster in the fall. If you looked at the spring roster for the spring game and you look at the fall roster, there'll be a whole lot of new names. And with the NCAA opening up the portal as well, where guys can come in and play immediately, I think that really helps that program like JSU.
Yeah, for sure. But I had a chance to catch up with head coach Rich Rodriguez. Here is that conversation that I had with Coach Rich Rod. Coach Rich Rodriguez here joining us. And, Coach, first of all, I mean, how's Jacksonville treating you so far? You've had a chance to kind of get acclimated with the city. How's Jacksonville so far?
I love it here. We're very fortunate that we were able to find a house close to campus. The people in the community have been terrific. It's an easy place to get settled in, no traffic, restaurants, and there's no lines. And so it's easy to get settled. And I really like the team that we have, the guys that are working hard. Now, my happiness is usually based on winning, so we'll see what happens. But at the same time, it's been, a good few months since we've been here.
There's been some, kind of overhaul in the roster, and that comes with being in the first year. You're, a lot of new guys. You're trying to get to know them. They're trying to get to know you. How has that been, kind of adjusting to taking over this program, to learning the guys, them learning you?
Yeah, and it's twofold. It's not just the transition from a new staff, but also the new NCAA rules where guys are, basically open transferring and NIL and getting this. So we lost a couple guys that got paid, basically with more money to go somewhere else. And, that's not typical in the past. In the past, you make a transition, you might lose a guy because they don't like your system or they don't think they fit in, whatever. Now you may lose a guy simply because he's getting paid more. And so I think it's making it harder. But that's the world we live in, and we knew that coming in. It's probably going to take longer to build that kind of culture that you want to have, but I don't have a lot of patience, so we're wanting to build it right now.
We're talking with Jacksonville State head coach Rich Rodriguez. And, Coach, you've been running the same offense for a number of years. When you get to
a new place like Jacksonville State? Do you have to tweak it? Do you have to change it just depending on the personnel? How does that work with something you've been running for so long?
Yeah, you really kind of adjust it to your skill guys, especially your quarterbacks. I mean, the last thing you want to do is run stuff that your quarterbacks can't execute. And I always tell everybody, it's not what you call, it's what you can execute. And really what you can execute is based on what your quarterbacks do well. And that's, for all the years we've been doing it, a lot of it's been similar because we've had similar quarterbacks, but there's been a few years where it's been a little different because that guy's skill set tends to lead you to this direction. So we're going to figure that out. The next 3 weeks, we're going to figure out exactly what our quarterbacks do well and then feature that.
What is the quarterback situation right now here with the Gamecocks?
Yeah, it's wide open. Zion Webb's the only one coming back from the spring, and he has some experience. He was a little bit banged up. He's healthy now. Then Aaron McLaughlin, who's a transfer from NC State, a big, strong guy, and has a little bit of experience. And the rest of the guys are freshmen. So it's I'm not 100% comfortable with that yet, but I think we have the talent there, and we'll be able to do some good things.
You, of course, like I mentioned, you've been running the same offense. You're an offensive guy, but defense also a big part. Talk about kind of the defense, what your expectations are on them. Again, a lot of new faces, I know, but as you get ready for fall camp to start, what's kind of the expectations for your defense?
Yeah, Zach Eller, our D coordinator, who is really sharp and has got a great plan. We got a really good defensive staff, and we're a little unique as far as we don't have one base. A thing that we do, we think it's pretty simple, but we can do a variety of things, and that's one thing that Zach has been good at, and he comes from the Clemson coaching tree, that he's able to adjust week to week some of the stuff defensively. We want to be aggressive, we want to take away the easy stuff, but our scheme defensively is a little bit unique for sure.
What's the off season been like as far as the weight program, kind of getting that implemented into this football program? Yeah,
I think one of the most important hires, and I think one of the best hires I was able to get was Blake McCall, our strength coach, who he and his strength staff had done a great job over the not just now but during the spring months, and it was hard for us. JSU, I think, in the last couple of years because of playing the spring season during COVID. And so they basically had a spring season and a fall season and not much work to really get in the weight room in between. And so that probably led to more injuries last year than is accustomed. So that was tough on them. They really didn't have an opportunity. Well, now we were able to have a good offseason in the spring. We were able to have a good summer program. And so our guys feel stronger. They are stronger and in a little bit better shape because we were able to do that.
Talking with Jacksonville State head coach Rich Rodriguez, and coach, very unfortunate passing of your offensive coordinator Calvin McGee, who I know you had worked with for a number of years, and it's definitely not the way you wanted to bring Rod Smith into the program. But talk about just kind of him now stepping in, a guy who also has run that offense.
Yeah, Calvin's loss was way more than from a coaching standpoint. I mean, he was a member of the family. We were very, very close, his family, my family, and a lot of other coaches who've been together. So, I mean, that took me for a loop for a couple of weeks. It was just it was a tough situation. But, I was very fortunate that Rod Smith was available to be able to come down here. And it's ironic because Rod, next to Calvin, has probably been the guy that's been with me the longest. And so being able to get Rod in here, it was really seamless as far as getting his role. Moved things around. Mike D'Angelo, who was coaching the quarterbacks, could coach anything on offense. Moved over to the tight ends and receivers, and able to keep Rod where he's used to at quarterbacks, and so it was a good fit.
Going into this season, it's the final season in FCS before the jump to Conference USA and FBS. But with that kind of year of transition, you're not able to make the playoffs, to contend for an FCS national championship. How do you motivate your players, and kind of what's going to be the message on that end to them this season?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a very fair point, and I'll talk to the team about that. We can't make the playoffs, but we can win the conference. And so I think every year, and no matter what level we're at, and even when we go to Conference USA next year, our first goal each and every year will be to win the conference. And so we'll emphasize that. We'll also emphasize that every player has the opportunity to increase their value, whether for one of the 4 pro leagues or or what have you that show they can play. And then some of them are fighting for their scholarships, to move up to full rides. And then obviously the last thing, I want our players to feel a great sense of pride for our 14 seniors, that we're going to have the best season possible. We want to have one of the best teams the school's ever had for those 14 guys.
You've coached really on all different levels of college football. Now, as you watch really college football, but change in front of all of our eyes, where do you see, a team like Jacksonville State, a smaller school in a smaller conference? Where do you see them playing into all the changes going on, whether it's conference realignment and all this stuff going on? Where do you see a school like JSU in Conference USA in all of this?
Yeah, I think we're very fortunate that we got into 1A and Conference USA when we did, because I'm a little nervous about the future of FCS and 1AA football going forward. Also, there's some concerns about Group of Fives where we'll be at, but I think there's enough of us and enough of an interest and enough of a value that will be okay, because TV's making a lot of choices nowadays. And, people love live content and they love live football. And at the Group of Five level, you get really good live college football that I think there'll be a market for from the TV network standpoint. And so whether they create a 16-team playoff, which I hope they do, or a 12-team, which I hope they do, or we do different TV deals with Conference USA and play on Wednesday nights and Thursday nights, I'm all for it. So I think there's a market for what level we'll be at. And I think our conference is hard working at it.
Well, Coach, we're looking forward to the season. Appreciate you taking some time with us today.
Okay, appreciate you. Thank you.
That was Jacksonville State head coach Rich Rodriguez. Had a chance to talk with him last week here on WKXX Live. Chase Robinson, Gerhard, Mathangani here with you. And I was interested to see what he said on that last question there in talking to him about where he sees a team like Jacksonville State. Again, he's been on all levels of college football. And as he sits here and watches it change, where he thinks a team like Jacksonville State is, and it's hard to tell where Conference USA will be, where mid-major schools will be when all of this shakeup is said and done.
Exactly right, and I think that's kind of the $1 million question in all of college athletics. It's not not isolated to Jacksonville State. I think a lot of football is wanting to know what's next, and we've get I would say over the last maybe 3 years, 5 years, and really if you expand it further, probably 10 years with college football realignment, and then how much, and Coach alluded to this, how much TV has dictated all of this, because that's where a lot, if not all, the revenue comes from. A lot of the major revenue, obviously you have ticket sales and whatnot, but so I think that you have an interesting situation as it relates to a lot of the mid-majors and them trying to position themselves in the best possible scenario.
Yeah.
We see what's going on with the Big 12. And the Big 12 commissioner, he outright came out and said it was like, we're open for business. And I think that was really refreshing to me, because for the first time I felt like I'm hearing the truth. Like,
yeah,
he understands, hey, if we don't keep up with the SEC and the Big 10, we'll be left behind. Now, Jacksonville State is obviously, they're swimming in a different pond, so to speak, but it will be interesting to see where football goes from this, because college football does need Conference USA, does need these mid-majors to be a part of the fold for the enhancement of the game overall, the enhancement of these conferences, for the enhancement of these programs. People kind of just casually throw out, well, if you can't keep up, then don't do it. But you're throwing away a lot of opportunities for these young athletes to be able to come in and get educations and whatnot. And I'm not trying to be Pollyanna about that. I think it really is good for the sport, even if they're not playing in the same quote unquote leagues as Alabama, as Auburn, as the SEC, as the Big Ten, as we see kind of these power decisions get made for the Power Five. But then you're also seeing it on the lower levels of college football. So I think we're in a really weird time, a really interesting time, but a time that I think that is exciting for Jacksonville State. I do think this move to FBS is the best thing for the program. Now, after that, where do you go from here as the landscape keeps changing?
Yeah, it'll be fun to follow and interesting to see where all of this ends up. We'll grab a quick timeout, come back, talk a little more Jacksonville State football, maybe what we can expect from this season. Stick around as we continue on this Monday afternoon here on WKXX Live. WKXX Live, Fox Sports 102.9. Chase Robinson, Gerhard, Mathangani along with you. And we just heard from Jacksonville State head coach Rich Rodriguez. And Gerhard, we've been covering Jacksonville State football sports for a number of years. And this may be the hardest year to figure out the roster with all of the change in the offseason in personnel. Like we said, it comes with a new coaching staff, but a lot of names to learn, and it's an adjustment, especially offensively. When you look at the way Gross ran an offense, and then Rich Rodriguez, who's been running this same offense for a number of years now, and so it's a big change, and we saw that in the spring. It took the offense a while, and Coach Rod would say they didn't pick it up at all during the spring game, but it took them a while to kind of get their feet wet with this offense that he runs.
It certainly did, and I mean, you saw there was growing pains, and I think that Coach Rod did a great job of kind of prepping the public, so to speak, about the being able to sand off some of the edges, and I think that's where this team is right now. They are in a position right now where, number one, they're going through not only a coaching change, but a complete culture change as they try to, obviously, like we talked about in our previous segment, make that jump to the FBS. But at the same time, as you mentioned, and as you talked about in the interview, this year is a little bit different because you're not playing for a national championship. You're in the FCS, but you're obviously, have this kind of a gap year where they're doing something completely different. So you have to have guys, I think, of a more locked in mindset. So to try to judge wins and losses, I think will be really difficult this year because they really need, I think, at this point to have guys that are ready to help set the culture. So I know they have some of the older guys on the team that are looking to increase their value as maybe they go to the next level. But I think this team will really rely on a lot of young players. And that's obviously, a gamble in and of itself. But we'll find out pretty early, I think, about who these guys are. Obviously, you have some of the guys that made a huge impact last year. You think of a guy like Will Gowdy. You think of a guy like Jalen Swain. These players that, in my opinion, really made an impact last year on the field. And I think that they're going to have to do that both on the field and in the locker room this year with a new coach and a new culture altogether.
Yeah, Jacksonville State opens up August 27th in Montgomery. 2:30 kickoff, ESPN against Stephen F. Austin. A really good football program there. They got a week 0 game, so I think a lot of college football fans who are just ready to watch some college football are going to be tuning in on August 27th at 2:30. You got ESPN's carrying the game. You got Rich Rod, who a lot of college football fans know. I think a lot of people are going to be watching that game.
Most certainly. And Jacksonville State has been, for the large part over the last, I would say, 10 years, they've been in the national conversation.
Yeah.
Obviously, went to a national championship game, played against probably the best team historically in this level of football in North Dakota State. And that wasn't that long ago. And I think Jacksonville State, obviously doing what they did last year and knocking off Florida State, and they've been in several other big games. Their brand is, hey, this is one of the top programs in the FCS. You add on top of that a coach that was at one of the more heralded programs in all of college football, a place like Michigan where Coach Rich Rodriguez was, and then at West Virginia. He's still in the consciousness of a lot of football fans. And then you have Stephen F. Austin, who is another program that I think a lot of people respect as well. Then you had that really early in the season. They get almost a standalone game. I haven't seen the whole slate, so I don't know how many games are on that list, but there's very few. And Jacksonville State versus Stephen F. Austin is the one that kind of headlines the whole thing. So as everybody whets their appetite for football, I think to get that game on that stage will be really key for JSU. I think that key, though, doesn't necessarily go to that time in football. I think that game, whatever the scoreboard says at the end of the game, that's one part of it. Jacksonville State getting its brand out there, and from a recruiting standpoint and what they're trying to build for the future, that's, I think, where it really will make its largest imprint.
Absolutely. And we will be your home for Jacksonville State football once again this fall, so you will hear that JSU Stephen F. Austin game right here on WKXX coming up on August the 27th. We'll grab a timeout here. Coming up, hour number 2. We'll get into some little golf talk on the way. Keith Niebuhr with AuburnLive.com will join us at 3:15. We'll get into some high school football as well. All that is up ahead. Hour number 2 of WKXX Live is on the other side. You know who
1029. Now, let's go inside the Fox Sports 102.9 studios with Chase Robinson for WKXX Live.
We're back here, hour number 2 on a Monday. Chase Robinson here. And as we welcome to our team today, Gerhard Mathangani, he is with us as well. And we've talked a lot about golf on this show with the PGA Tour, Live Tour, all that's going on. But Gerhard, just looking at the schedule of the PGA that they released today, and really looking at the last few months of this whole saga, there's a lot of money in golf right now.
There certainly is. And I'll tell you what, Chase, I've been fascinated by this story because just when you take a look at just the professional sports world in general, we have not seen a seismic shift in any of the major professional sports leagues until now. And we're living this in real time as this all plays out. The NFL went through its little time, and then you had the merger. The NBA had the merger as well with the ABA. And Major League Baseball has been the same that it's been since the 1800s, it seems like. And so you obviously adding teams and whatnot. But this is the first shakeup in a major professional sports league that we've seen. And the way that it's played out to me is really interesting. Of course, the PGA Tour came out today, announced their schedule. But one of the very first things that they meant to do, and I know they did this on purpose, was announcing a record deal as far as the money they'll be giving out in prize money. $428.6 million in prize money over 44 tournaments. And ironically, this comes on the heels of the Live tournament saying they're expanding. They're going from 8 events to now 14 events. And those golfers are now playing for prize money of $405 million. So to be able to get that dollar figure, even though it's more tournaments, to get that dollar figure above where Live's was, it really makes for an interesting dynamic, because we're starting to see this shift right now in golf, but I think in sports in general, because of the influx of money. And Coach Rich Rod talked about it in the world of college football. We've seen the way that TV money has really altered what we've seen from that sport. I think the same thing is happening in golf right now. Now, Live obviously doesn't have, as of right now, a major TV deal, but they're supported by the Saudi Arabian Crown Prince and the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund, which it seems like they have more money than they know what to do with. They've already given guys like DJ and Phil Mickelson and Patrick Reed, already given them contracts between $100 and $200 million. And then on top of that, you have really lucrative prize money there. So we're seeing a seismic shift, and it's now interesting to see the kind of the counterpunch here from the PGA Tour that they announced today.
Do you think there will ever be a day where the PGA and the Live are able to work together? I mean, are we going to get to a point where they're going to have to figure something out to work together, or is this just going to be two separate things for the rest of time?
I think at the very beginning there was a thought that they could work together, and because the PGA Tour, they do work with a lot of other professional tours. They work really well with the Senior Tour. They work really well with the Champions Tour. They work really well with the European Tour. They let their players play over there. I think what really the straw that broke the camel's back was when the Live Tour was able to bring tournaments to American soil. I think if they were in Saudi Arabia, out in Europe, I think that would be fine. But once those tournaments came here, it was a direct threat to what the PGA wants to do. Now, obviously, you add into that the fact that it's Saudi Arabia and, their human rights violations that they've had. And I mean, these things are well documented. You don't want to politically align with Live. Now, let's just say it was some huge company. Let's say it was Google or Amazon or Apple or Microsoft that bought this league. And a lot of those companies that I just mentioned are getting into professional sports leagues. If it was one of them, I think it'd be a little bit different. I think you see some cohesion and probably meet at the table, something that helps out everybody. Because it's Live and because we've already kind of gotten here where we are, where this banter back and forth, I just don't think that we're in a place where they can work together. And I don't think the PGA Tour really wants to. I think they want to beat Live. I think that they, at this point, want to beat them. And so they'll beat them in the quote unquote, in the court of public opinion because of what they can, deem Saudi Arabia of being for. And at the same time, try to keep their golfers in-house by saying, hey, we will pay you more money. And nobody wants to admit this, but Phil Mickelson on the front end said that the Live tournament has a chance to alter what the PGA Tour does. Now, he muddied it up with a whole bunch of other words about Saudi Arabia and throwing things under that I think that really, hacked off a lot of people. But we're starting to see a change in the PGA Tour. Same thing that he mentioned months and months and months ago.
Yeah, it's really interesting how this is all shaking out. And when we saw this Live Tour first come out, there's rumors of these players going, but as we saw the money, as we saw the guys go, and it was crazy to see the amount of money that was being spent on these guys who it was not the fresh blood of golf.
Correct.
I mean, it was these guys who they've been at it a long time. And so I'm interested as time moves on, who goes where, who chooses to play in what organization, and how that's going to affect the game of golf. It's really interesting.
Exactly. And you talked about it where we don't expect, I think Phil Mickelson's best years of golf are behind him.
Yeah.
I think Sergio Garcia's best years of golf are behind him. They have guys that are approaching their final years. I think Bubba Watson is one of the newest names that's been rumored to make that trip. I think at this point now, if Liv can start luring away some of these younger players, and there was talk that Cam Smith, who just won the British Open, that they're talking with him. If they can lure Justin Thomas, a former Alabama star, Jordan Spieth, some of these guys, I think that it will really create some problems for the PGA Tour. And these guys are saying, hey, look, if we can still play in the majors that are not run by the PGA Tour, the PGA Tour does not run any majors. The RNA runs the British Open. The USGA runs the US Open. The PGA Tour of America is the one that runs the PGA Championship. And then you have, obviously, Augusta. They do their own thing there at Augusta National. If they can still play in the tournaments that everybody cares about, they care about, for the most part, they care about the four majors, the FedEx Cup, which the FedEx Cup is helped organized by the PGA Tour. But if they can still play in the four majors, then they're fine with that. And I think that if you can start now getting some of these younger golfers to join the tour, to join the Live Golf Series, and then say, hey, we'll pay you handsomely and you'll get to play in majors, it'll be a hard thing for a lot of these guys, I think, to pass up. And the PGA Tour, their only counter step, in my opinion, their only counter is to up their prize money. And so can they keep their young guys on tour? Can they keep them away from Live? As of right now, it seems like for the most part, the younger guys are staying. And you obviously had a great promotion from Tiger Woods, who already came out and said he said his two cents about it. And for the most part, he stood in the background and said he wasn't going to make a decision. He didn't want to judge one way or the other. Then he came out really openly for the PGA Tour when they were over in Scotland at St. Andrews for the British Open. So to me, it's going to be really interesting to see how all this plays out, especially with some of their young guys. And if some of the young guys end up going to Live, then I think the PGA Tour's got a really big problem on their hands.
Yeah, for sure. And we mentioned the prize money going up. Next season's PGA Tour schedule has 6 invitationals, and their purses increased by a total of $43.8 million. The first 2 FedEx Cup playoff events will have their prize money go up from $15 million to $20 million. So I mean, the PGA Tour is doing what they need to do to kind of match the money. And that's what's appealing to these guys now. Liv pulled them over.
Right.
So the PGA Tour is doing a good job of trying to keep up.
Yeah, and that's what they have to do. And I know that the PGA Tour now has to go back to their sponsors and ask for more money that they didn't have before. But I think they can now go on, hey, we have this golf tournament, 5 events, 5 of their 8 events this year are played here. They're expanding to 14. No telling how many more events will be here on American soil. So they really have to. Their only counter move was to be able to say to their players, hey, we have your best interest at heart. Is it too late? We'll see. I think a lot of players will start to judge it. They'll say, hey, look, if we can make as much or close to what we would make on Live, then don't go for the blowback of joining the Saudi Tour, stay in the PGA. And I think that's the PGA's move right now, saying, essentially kind of demonizing the Live Tour and then saying, hey, if you stay here, you'll make as much money or close to as much money you would have made there anyways. And then making the PGA Tour more appealing by making Live seem less appealing and kind of a lateral move. If you can make it look like a lateral move, then I think a lot of those PGA guys end up staying.
Yeah. Will be interesting to follow golf and kind of the future of the sport and where it ends up and really who ends up where. That's also the case in college football because it is big recruiting time right now. We're going to jump into some college football recruiting specifically with the Auburn Tigers. Keith Niebuhr with AuburnLive.com will join us on the other side of this break. It was Big Cat weekend and some recruits coming out of the weekend. So we'll talk Auburn football recruiting. Keith Niebuhr, AuburnLive.com, joins us next.
Coach Nick Saban.
Steven.
Who said that?
Me, down here.
Ugh, what are you, a yellow booger?
I'm a banana slug, Steven.
What are you doing in my room?
I'm your sense of adventure. It's been a long time since we've had an adventure in the forest.
Mom took me to the forest last year.
I'm a slug, Steven. It took me a long time to get here.
You're right. I should get out.
Yeah, the forest is not that far away.
Hey, Mom!
Come to the forest where the more adventurous you lives. Check out discovertheforest.org for cool places nearby. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
The Department of Labor can help workers and employers with unemployment claims related to COVID-19. File claims and get more information at labor.alabama.gov. This message is sponsored by the Alabama Department of Labor, the Alabama Broadcasters Association, and this station, with funding provided by the U.S. Department of Labor, Employment and Training Administration, and the Federal Workforce Opportunity Innovation Act. An equal opportunity employer program, auxiliary aids and services available upon request to individuals with disabilities.
Hey, Gunnersville, we are your local sports station, Fox Sports 102.9 and 99.7.
We are back here on this Monday afternoon. Chase and Gerhard along with you afternoons here on WKXX Live. And we are going to go to the All-American HVAC Service Hotline. We welcome on Keith Niebuhr with AuburnLive.com, covering Auburn football recruiting. Keith, how are you today? Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I'm good. How you guys doing?
Doing great. And Big Cat weekend this past weekend, always big for the Auburn Tigers. And I want to start with 4-star edge Ashley Williams. He was committed to Nebraska, and just so happens the day after he comes to Big Cat weekend, decommits from Nebraska. Where are we with Ashley Williams? Will we see him in an Auburn Tiger uniform?
Yeah, probably. That's going to be a guy to keep an eye on in the next 2 to 3 days. You know, leading up to that visit to Auburn, there'd been some real confidence at Auburn about the possibility of flipping him. He'd been committed to Nebraska for only a few weeks, but Nebraska's in a little bit of a numbers crunch at the edge position. They've got a legacy committed. You probably don't want to get rid of that guy. They were targeting another recruit, and they might not have had room for him. So the numbers weren't really looking great at Nebraska. And I think Ashley realized that, and the numbers do look good at Auburn. They need to sign 4 edges in this cycle, and they have 1 committed, Wilkie Denard of Fort Pierce, John Carroll, down in Florida on the Atlantic Coast, who committed last week. So there's more room at Auburn, and that's a good thing. That doesn't mean Nebraska didn't want him. They did. They were just in a little bit of a numbers crunch. Auburn had that availability. He visited on Saturday and Sunday. It went great. We got tipped off Saturday night that it was decommitment was likely coming. It happened the next morning. I think he just wanted to get back to Louisiana, hang out with his parents, finalize some things. But in the end, I expect him to be in the Auburn class. And he's a high upside player. Got a nice ceiling. I'm not a scout per se. I'm just a reporter. But the people I talk to really like his ceiling. Think he's going to be a 6'5", 6'6" edge. He's got to put on some weight, no doubt about it. He's a guy that you can probably work with a few years before you're going to need him. They have a big need at the position, but again, they're going to also try to bring in some maybe a veteran guy, maybe more of a guy that's game ready in year one. So I don't think the push is going to be there for him to play right away. They can really develop him, but they like him a lot.
Hey, Keith, Gerhard here. Let's talk big picture for this 2023 class. 5 commitments overall. Is that any sense of concern for the Tigers, or do you feel do you feel like they do you feel like where they are with some of the recruits, like the guys you just mentioned, that they're really close to some of these guys, where so the 5 right now is not that big of a deal?
I mean, Big Cat Weekend really, people are always like, how come they didn't get more commits? They never get a lot of commitments on Big Cat Weekend. It's more about laying the groundwork to land commits down the road. And in that respect, I think Auburn did a good job. They're at 5 commitments. He's not battling a cold here, but if Ashley Williams flips like we think, that's 6. Ja'Corius Hart, an in-state DB, 3-star kid with that really good speed, like 4.37 in the 40 in an Auburn camp earlier this year. He's going to announce within the next week. They probably get him. They may be on the verge. They're working on some other flips. They're pushing hard for Georgia offensive tackle commit Bo Hughley. They are close to possibly landing Connor Liu, a very good center guard out of Georgia. Well, if you get all those guys, you're looking at 8, 9 in that range, and then all of a sudden you really remember they landed a guy last week, Wilkie Denard, the edge. So then you'd be talking about doubling your commitment total in just a few weeks, and so all of a sudden things would look a lot brighter. They've got a lot of spots available. They could have up to 30 spaces in this group, but this class won't just, and no class does anymore, won't just include high school players. There could be some JUCO guys. There's going to be some transfers because they have a lot of losses coming off this 2022 team. Tank Bigsby, Owen Popo, Derek Hall, E.Q. Leota. So, they're going to be replacing a lot of veterans. So the reality is they're probably going to end up hitting the portal extremely hard as well. So if it was, hey, they're going to sign 30 high school guys, they only got 5 commitments, you'd be really worried. But I don't think they're going to sign that many, maybe 20 or so high school guys, and use the other available spots for transfers and things like that. So it's looking up, let's put it that way. And they're getting a lot of attention from kids, privately behind the scenes. A lot of these recruits want to know that these guys are going to be around. Okay, with NIL, you have to have faith in your school's NIL deal that's going to get you in the ball game. So if it's comparable to other schools, let's say, then it ultimately will come back down to relationships, right? And so if that's the case, these kids want to know that the guy they're building a relationship is going to be around. So that's why those first 4 or 5 games are so crucial to Auburn. They gotta not just survive it. They gotta really have a good record and look pretty good. They've got 3 big games at home of the first 5. Remember, they opened their season with 5 straight home games. One of them is Penn State in week 3. One of them is LSU in week 5. But don't forget, they have an SEC game sandwiched in between those against Missouri. That's another prime spot because it's an SEC game. So you're going to be able to get recruits there. So they have the chance to show off. They have the chance to do something. They think they're going to be a lot better than the prognosticators nationwide believe. If they are, that could open some odds. They're in communication with a lot of kids committed to other schools. Can they get any? That's the question.
Keith Niebuhr, AuburnLive.com, joining us here on the All-American HVAC Service Hotline. And Keith, you mentioned the edge position. That was one that Auburn really needed to get some guys. Are there some other positions that Auburn really has to fill spots at to help them in the future?
Yeah. Well, can I be honest? Almost all of them. Because when you look at who you're going to be losing. Now, you could argue that the quarterback position, they probably could go without a guy this class. Sorry, this cold is ripping me apart here. But they have 4 quarterbacks, I believe, on scholarship right now. Zach Calzada, who I think is probably going to be the starter, T.J. Finley, the returning starter, Robbie Ashford, and a transfer from Oregon, and then also Holden Gerner. So even if one of them leaves, even if you have some attrition, theoretically you could go into a season with only 3 on scholarship. Should that happen, they might explore the portal or junior colleges or something like that, or just take more of a reach at the high school level. But that's not a huge priority because now they have one committed for 2024, 4-star Adrian Posse of Miami, and they might take a second. So, again, that would be one position, and I would say the tight end position is probably the other position where they don't absolutely have to hit a home run. But running back, they needed somebody, and they've got him in Jeremiah Cobb, the 4-star back from Montgomery, because Tank Bigsby is probably going to be gone. Receiver, they don't have a lot of spots available, but they have a lot of, let's put it this way, they got an unproven receiver group, right? So that's a need. Offensive line, huge need, obviously. They haven't had a great offensive line class since 2017. In fact, 2 of those guys are still around. The 2017 class, Austin Troxler, your tackle, and Nick Brahms, your starting center. They're still there, but since then it's kind of just been a wasteland. Yeah, a lot of misses, not that many hits, and not even a lot of numbers, really. So that's probably, to me, the second biggest priority. And then defensive tackle is huge, not just the edge, but the tackle position, because you've got to play. You got to have like 10 guys to be able to throw out there each week. You know what I mean? 8 to 10 guys. You need your main guys fresh in the fourth quarter. Linebacker, you're going to be losing Owen Popo. You got to replenish there. The secondary, you just lost Roger McCreary. Now, Jalen Simpson could be a guy that's gone after this year. Yeah, you're going to be losing some other good guys, Nehemiah Pritchett. So they've got needs everywhere. They do. They just do.
Keith Niebuhr, AuburnLive.com, does a great job covering Auburn football recruiting. As always, Keith, really appreciate you taking a few minutes with us. We'll do it again soon, but thanks for joining us.
Yeah, anytime. Take care, guys.
Thank you. Keith Niebuhr, AuburnLive.com, joins us on the All-American HVAC Service Hotline. Lots of work to do, Gerhard. You mentioned the 5 commits so far, well behind most other SEC schools, I believe. So a lot of work to do, but it's a lot of confidence, apparently.
Right, certainly. And I think Keith hit on it. To me, it's really interesting to find out where these programs go because we've now officially pushed up the signing day. And what I love about Keith's website is that they are really open about the NIL stuff and NIL value. There's also a segment on there with the collectives on there as well. And so you get kind of a holistic view of the recruiting, and there's really you start to see, how the sausage is made, so to speak, in this new world of recruiting. And so, yes, for Auburn, having those 5, he said, yes, it is concerning because they do need help everywhere. Number one, however, it is a little bit easier to go from one place to another because the transfer portal. So they'll probably hit the portal really hard and go after guys that maybe committed one place and then might be rethinking that going to Auburn. And I think Keith hit really on a lot of the, I think, issues that if you're an Auburn fan and you look at the recruiting rankings, you have to go to the second page because Auburn's in the 50s or in the 60s, depending on what recruiting database you're looking at. I think he's saying pump the brakes on the panic. However, there is a little cause for concern. So these next 3-4 weeks, about a month, will be really important for the Tigers.
Absolutely. I appreciate Keith Niebuhr for joining us. Your thoughts, Gerhard? We talk a lot of recruiting on here, and we had a big signing day special here on the station last year. Are you for early signing day or against it?
I'm kind of against it. And I'm kind of a purist on this. I know this is kind of where the recruits want to, like, they want to be able to do it early. And I think the reason why is they just want the phone to stop ringing for the next few months. And if they already know where they're going, then they can go. The NCAA, I think, was well intended. Their decision to allow December signing. However, I think that it's taken a lot away from, in my opinion, two different worlds. The world number one of being able to let these coaches have a little bit of a break because of this new, because of the new signing period, and because the guys are committing early. The guys that know where they want to go, recruiting is now a 24/7 thing, and so there used to be these designated breaks throughout the course of the calendar year where coaches could take some time off. I know a lot of guys in the coaching profession, you do as well. They're now on their phones all the time now because you can't lose any ground in the months of May and June and July, because that's now become a heavy recruiting time. What you used to be able to take time away, go with your family because you don't have time in season, you're now spending that time in recruiting. I'm a purist in that, and I come from the world of broadcast television. You do too. And so that world, it was always, hey, that first weekend of that first Wednesday of February, you got a chance to watch college football end its championship in the month of January. A heavy recruiting cycle, a lot of moves in late January, and then on February 3rd, you had that signing day, or the first Wednesday in February. It's not, doesn't always fall on the 3rd. You have that first Wednesday, February, and everybody signs, and it's a huge day then, and then you start to get more signatures after that. I'm a purist because I like that old school style because it really works, I think, for the football calendar overall, and it really works with these coaches. I think the December period, to me, it's taken a lot away from the purity, I think, of what signing day used to be. And at the same time, it really puts these coaches in a lot more of a bind, making them work harder. And I think pressure on the kids as well to make an early decision before all the roster spots get filled up. Yeah, certainly. I think that is a big part of it. And but as far as Auburn recruiting, a lot of ground to make up on. Just 5 commits so far. We'll see if Ashley Williams, 4-star edge there from Louisiana. He was committed to Nebraska yesterday, decommitted. We'll see if he ends up an Auburn Tiger. Certainly can expect that now after Big Cat Weekend. We'll grab a break here. Want to talk a little high school football. It is almost that time. We're just a couple of weeks away from high school football now. We'll hit on that coming up next, and much more as we continue here on this Monday afternoon of WKXX Live.
Calls for all their HVAC needs, All-American HVAC Services. Hey, it's Chase from WKXX Live. The heat in our studio went out, and guess who he called? All-American HVAC Services. They're family-owned, veteran-operated, and they take pride in their quality of work. And they're going to keep you informed through the whole process. They're going to work on units of all makes and models. So for all of your heating and air needs, give All-American HVAC Services a call at 256-393-0104 for a free estimate.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
We, the people, are guaranteed 5 freedoms in the First Amendment.
Freedom of speech.
Freedom of religion.
Freedom of the press.
Freedom to peaceably assemble.
Freedom to petition the government.
Only the United States has these 5 freedoms so simply bound together and guaranteed. Think first. Learn more at thinkfirstamendment.org.
Sponsored by the Alabama Broadcasters Association and this station.
Do you have diabetes? Want to improve your blood sugar levels and keep your blood pressure on target? Then diabetes self-management education and support can help. Like many people with diabetes, you may find managing your diabetes difficult. Having a game plan and a coach can help you design a specific plan, complete with tools and support you need to thrive. Diabetes education helps people lower their blood sugar, blood pressure, and cholesterol levels. To find a diabetes education program near you, visit alabamapublichealth.gov/diabetes.
My daughter Brinley is here at St. Jude. Coming here was literally life or death, and it was so scary. But St. Jude is fighting for one goal, like this one mission, life. And that gave us hope. We haven't received a single bill from St. Jude, so I really can just focus on what's best for Brinley.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Alana was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it's cancer. As a parent, when you're told this type of news, you're going to do whatever you can do for your babies. When we got to St. Jude is when I realized that, no, you're not going to get a bill for anything. I don't have to worry about it. They're saying we're going to help save her, and we're not going to charge you anything. This is what we do.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling on it.
The dad joke. Corny, groan-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
What did the buffalo say when he dropped his son off for school? Bye, son.
So take a moment to make your kid laugh, because dad jokes rule. Make your kid laugh today. Go to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone?
Do flowers have best friends?
I don't know. Hey, look.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Text and whatever. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
A Center. We are your local sports station. Fox Sports 102.9 and 99.7.
We'll continue. Chase and Gerhard with you on this Monday afternoon. Afternoons here on WKXX Live. As we are glad you are along with us. You can give us a call, 256-413-1029. That is 256-413-1029. WKXX Live is brought to you in part by Frank's Roofing. We called Frank's Roofing because we had a leak here at the studio, and we needed a fair price. We needed somebody who could get on it and the next day, and that is what Frank's Roofing did. The estimate was free, a very fair price. They were professional. They were courteous. They fixed the problem in one visit. They got the job done and got it done right. So do what we did. Trust Frank's Roofing for your shingle, metal, or flat roof repair or replacement. You can call 256-458-8531 for a free estimate. That is Frank's Roofing. Appreciate those guys for coming on with us here on WKXX Live. Gerhard, we are at that time of the year where high school football is practices started. Some teams starting last week if they didn't do the spring practice. Some getting going this week. School starting like next week or something. And August 18th is the official first day of high school football. Last week we had a chance to listen to a lot of coaches. Media days all over the place. We had Etowah County on Tuesday. I was at Marshall County on Thursday. Calhoun County on Friday. So we heard a lot of coaches. What are some maybe some coaches, some teams that stood out to you that after hearing the coach, you think this is a team to watch out for this year?
Yeah, there was a few, and you and I crossed paths a lot of those media day events. And I'll start with Etowah County. There was two that really stood out to me. Number one was Gadsden City, obviously going from 7A down to 6A. I think will be really interesting. They're in a I think 6A is a good home for the Titans. Now, can they replicate some of the success that they had when they were in 6A beforehand? And they were up there. They were competing with the Hoovers and whatnot when they were in 6A previous. Now they're back there, so we'll see what the Titans have. And I think that they have, number one, I think they have the culture now built there with Coach Ollie Smith. He's been there for a while. He understands what the Titans need. And I think that they will get off on a really strong foot. Another team out of Etowah County is Southside. I think Southside's got a lot coming back that they're really excited about. Second year under Coach Holcomb. I think they built a great staff. There's a lot of enthusiasm going into the season. Of course, their quarterback Engage comes back this year. So I think that you have continuity at the most important position. You have now a culture now built with a second-year head coach and his staff and Coach Holcomb, and a schedule that I think is really interesting for Southside, and one that I think that they can find a whole lot of success in as they move into the playoffs.
You know, you bring up a good point with Gadsden City. I think you've probably been covering Gadsden City as long as they've been a school, right?
Yes. In fact, their first years as a school kind of coincide with my first turns professionally here.
And so you've seen them really since Joe Billingsley started that program. You've seen them in their 7A days as well. I think this is a really good thing that they're in 6A. I like what Ollie Smith is doing there at Gadsden City. And, you know, they couldn't quite kind of get over the hump there in 7A.
Right.
I think of also Albertville, another school in our listening area, who they're in 7A and they can't quite get over the hump there in 7A. But I think Gadsden City being in 6A, the teams they're going to be playing, I think this is going to kind of boost their confidence a little bit. I think they're going to win some important games.
100%. They seemed that for a while, and honestly, even to this day, that there are two different levels of 7A football. You have kind of the lower half, the lower level of football, and then you have the three schools, obviously the main three, with Thompson being one and Hoover being another, and then you have that team, usually a surprise team that comes up, and we've seen different teams kind of fill that void. We've seen Hewitt-Trussville play really well. We've seen a lot of other schools. Vestavia had a solid year as well, but it's really kind of Hoover, Thompson, and then everybody else, it feels like. And to be able to get over that hump, to me, was a lot. 6A, to me, is the most widespread. And in any year, to me, you have 10 teams that can win the state championship. Gadsden City, I think, can find themselves, if it's not this year, in the very near future, where they're now going to be one of the teams that is in contention every single year. There's a lot of talent that walks through those buildings, walks through those halls each and every day. I expect the exact same thing, and they do a great job of developing their talent as well. And so I think that the Titans have a lot to look forward to because, as you mentioned, they're now not one of those teams, once again, on the outside looking in. I think they can firmly now place themselves in the thick of the hunt there in Class 6A.
Yeah, for sure. And so, Etowah County football should be good this year. I believe it was only 2 teams out of Etowah County made the playoffs last year.
Right.
I think that could be different this year.
Yeah.
I really do. Calhoun County Media Day on Friday as well. Calhoun County high school football has been really good as of late. And I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon.
Exactly. And this is a county that really takes pride in their football. But I think for the first time, we're starting to see a lot of different schools, a lot of different classifications. It's not soaked up into one. It's not just small ball. It's not small school ball. It's not just large school ball. It's everybody. It's 1A through 6A, in my opinion, the schools that represent those classifications there. It's 1A through 6A that they're all playing at a really high level right now, and it makes for really, really good football. And then we've had the bust up of what we've been calling the SEC region there in Class 3A, and you have the breakup there of your you have your Piedmonts and your Welburns and Saxon. That league has been insanely crazy as far as how competitive it is, how many good football programs we've seen in and out. And so now that league is a little bit busted up. That region, I should say, is busted up to where I think we can see more teams now have a shot at those 4 spots there in the playoffs. Oxford's had a really good run. Obviously banged up last year, and I expect them to have a better year this year. Anniston has probably the most talented team in the entire county coming back this year. I think Coach Rico Smith has done a great job with that program as well. We talked about Miles Holcomb and Ollie Smith, I think, in the same boat. You have Rico White, who's done a great job with that program, being able to put that, I think, have discipline within the program, number one, but then also pull out a ton of talent. And once again, he's got a really talented squad. And then, of course, you got Piedmont, who will once again bring back, I think, in my opinion, the best player in the state in Jack Hayes. And I obviously, pound for pound, I'm talking. Obviously, there's a ton of really, really great players going into this year. But to me, he's one of the best players coming back. And he'll lead a team that I think has another great chance to win another state championship. And so obviously a lot of football to be played between now and December, but the same Calhoun County we have seen kind of grow over these last 5 years, I think once again, the entire county will put another great product on the field. Once again, that goes all the way from your 1A school in Donahoe all the way to your 6A school in Oxford.
Absolutely. I'm ready for some high school football. A team that I had a chance to listen in at the Marshall County Media Day, and as a coach that you and I are very familiar with, who spent time here in Etowah County, Lee Osmond and Arab.
Right.
Arab was just really a field goal away from winning their region last year. Oxford kicked that field goal to beat them and to win that region. Arab's bumped down to 5A.
Right.
They're going to be in 5A Region 7 against Douglas, Sardis, Scottsboro, Crossville, Boaz, and Gunnersville. There's some good football teams in there. But just listening to Coach Osmond the other day talk about how special this group is. And you can just tell there's something about this team that I don't think this is a team you're going to want to cross on Friday nights.
Exactly. And Coach Osmond has done a phenomenal job throughout the course of his career. And I've got a chance to know him really well from his days over at Glencoe High School. And to see the talent that he's able to pull out, to see the ability he's able to pull out of every guy on the roster, and the fact that they know him and they trust him. And this is an ARAB program that was not that long ago. They were going 2-8, 1-9. And then he gets there, and one of his very first few years there, they go 6-4. They don't make the playoffs, but then they made the playoffs the last 2 years. And you mentioned it. They were within a whisker of winning a region championship. And it's phenomenal when you look at it on its surface, but then when you get to know the guy that's doing it, the results aren't all that surprising, because he did the exact same thing at Glencoe, perennially deep in the playoffs. They were very, very close to knocking off the Madison Academy team that I remember watching that game in the semifinals. Whoever won that game, in my opinion, was going to win the state championship. Yeah. And within, once again, another field goal at the very last second there was the difference between them going to a state championship and getting out in the fourth round. So Coach Osmond has done a fantastic job there, and I think that will continue going into this year. And then obviously dropping down in classification, I think also helps as well, because they'll be playing schools that are more within their attendance as more so than they were in Class 7A. So Coach Osmond going into his fourth year. Now every guy, for the most part, that started their high school seasons, their high school careers there, now they only know one structure. It's Coach Osmond's structure, and I do expect them to continue to build on the success that he's had over the last couple of years.
Absolutely. I think they're going to be very fun to watch. So is that region. I mean, that is most of our local schools in our WKXX listening area in that 5A Region 7, so that one should be a fun one to watch. Let's jump to a break here. Want to come back and have a little discussion on a sports legend that was lost over the weekend. We'll dive into that coming up next here on this Monday afternoon at WKXX Live.
Back to school time, and today's lesson at the Kia store, Anniston, Oxford, and Rainbow City, Gadsden. Trade-ins are worth more now than ever. But this will not last forever, so don't wait. Trade and upgrade to a new Kia for thousands less before it's too late. Stuck in your loan or lease, the Kia store wants to get you released, even if you owe thousands more than your trade is worth, regardless of miles or condition. For a limited time, get up to $2,000 over Kelley Blue Book fair market value for any trade, so you can drive a new, more fuel-efficient Kia for less. We have a great selection of new Kias with more arriving daily, including the all-new 2023 Sportage SUV, plus Telluride and Sorrento SUVs, all available with zero down payment and super low financing. Worried about your credit? Don't sweat it. We've partnered with even more aggressive lenders that will push to approve your credit, even if it's less than perfect. Celebrate lower prices, exceptional trade-in values, and a better buying experience at the Kia store, Anniston, Oxford, and Rainbow City, Gadsden, or online at mykiastore.com. Subject to lender approval. Offers not combined. Sale ends 8/31/22.
I'm probably okay to have one more drink before I drive home. I'm probably okay. I open the window to stay alert. Probably okay. I just popped some gum in my mouth.
Step out of the car, please.
I probably made a mistake.
Probably okay isn't okay when it comes to drinking and driving. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Not littering is not hard. If you've accumulated trash in your vehicle, don't throw it out the window. Throw it in a can at the gas pump. Throw it in a can at a storefront. Throw it in a can at work. Or throw it in the can at home. Just don't drop it on Alabama. Not littering is not hard. Brought to you by People Against a Littered State, the Alabama Department of Transportation, the Alabama Broadcasters Association, and this station.
If Baby could talk, she'd say a lot. You'd know what she's thinking and what makes her happy. But unfortunately, Baby can't talk or remind you. You're the one taking her to daycare today, and she won't speak up if you drive straight to work like any other day and never think to look in the backseat. Every year, dozens of kids die from heat stroke in cars. No one is perfect, so set a reminder and always look before you lock. Where's Baby? Paid for by NHTSA.
At YMCA Summer Camp, kids find their why. Friendship and fun, a world of adventure beneath a golden sun. Running, laughing, full of wonder. Being themselves is second nature. Summer camp is where they begin to unlock the confidence that lies within. When kids find new passions, they find their why. Summer camp season starts soon. Learn more at ymca.org for a better us.
Employment First strives to include people with disabilities in the workplace. The initiative benefits the companies that invest in people with disabilities, and the employees become well-qualified workers and self-sufficient members of the community. Turn a disability into an opportunity. For more information, go to www.acdd.org or call 1-800-232-2158. Sponsored by the Alabama Council for Developmental Disabilities, the Alabama Disabilities Advocacy Program, the ABA, and this station.
At the YMCA, finding your why starts by making an impact together, touching lives for the better. It can be the gift of time or treasure, supporting a community through talent without measure. Here, compassion fuels commitment, finding fulfillment through enrichment, serving and improving. What a way to live, and what a gift it is to give. Find your why and get involved today at ymca.org for a better us.
Northeast Alabama's only all-sports station. WKXX, Fox Sports 102.9.
We roll on this Monday afternoon. Chase and Gerhard with you here, WKXX Live. As, man, it's flown by so far. We're getting close to wrapping it up here on this Monday. But Gerhard, a legend. When you look at really sports as a whole, not just any specific sport, but a true legend, Bill Russell passed away over the weekend. Remarkable what he was able to accomplish. I think because of all these the newer people who've accomplished so much, he kind of gets pushed back, but just reflecting on what he was able to accomplish yesterday as the news came out of his death, remarkable, the legacy that he's left on sports.
Most certainly. And he's one of those guys where he's always just kind of etched in your brain as just one of the best winners ever. Yeah. And obviously, when people start to put together these lists, and they sound kind of trivial now, but they put together the list of the best baseball players, basketball players, football players. When they do basketball, obviously you kind of start with Jordan and you do LeBron and Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem, and But Bill Russell, to me, was one of those guys that was number one in that conversation because he won. He was a winner. He won 11 straight 11 NBA championships in 13 years, which is the most remarkable thing. 8 of those in a row. You add to that 2 national championships on the college level and a gold medal with Team USA, and also won 2 championships as a coach as well. And he just did it with such grace and such dignity. And he carried that all the way to his last days. You know, from the time he was a player, he had to deal with a lot of stuff from a society standpoint. And then all the way through his 80s, he was able to maintain just this sense of dignity. And that's kind of, to me, his lasting legacy is not only the dignity that he played with, but he was able to do it in a way that not sacrifice who he is and still win. And to me, that's the biggest part. When you and I were talking about this earlier, he's one of those guys that I kind of put on the Mount Rushmore of winning. Maybe not like basketball players, but just winning in general. And when I think of people who win, I think Bill Russell to me represents probably the greatest athlete in team sports as it relates to pure winning. And obviously, Jordan won 6 championships, but Bill Russell won 11, and all the accolades I just talked about earlier. And to me, he's up there with, obviously like guys like Nick Saban. And I think about like coaches like Coach Paul Bear Bryant, coaches like Coach Vince Lombardi, Dale Earnhardt Sr. Just people that I just think of them, and I think of just one term, winning. And he's that guy. And the fact that he was able to do it for so long on so many different levels as a player and as a coach, to me, he left such a great legacy. One of the most iconic figures in the history of his sport, but I think in the history of team sports in general.
Yeah, big loss to the sports world there in Bill Russell. Let's go to the phone lines real quick before we get out of here. Jeremy on with us. How are you today, Jeremy?
I'm good, man. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar said it best. He said he was the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
11 championships out of 13 seasons. I mean, now, there's no discussion about if everybody wants to talk about your greatness in the league based on championships. I think he was the best. Mm-hmm. I don't think there is no argument about whether he was the best or not. So, yeah, I grew up loved watching the Celtics, and if you watched them growing up, then you heard about Bill Russell. You've heard about it every time you watched him play.
Right.
So it's. I liked hearing him interviewed. I loved hearing him talk because he wasn't afraid. He wasn't afraid to tell the rest of them, "Hey, I can beat y'all.
Yeah.
I would have wore y'all out." So yeah, man, that's a tough loss for the sports world right there.
Yeah, sure was. A guy that and I don't think anybody will get to this level that he was on.
No, I don't think we'll see another winner like this. And he did it with a dynasty. Like you think of the Boston Celtics, as Jeremy was talking about, you think of championships, you think of titles, and he was a large part of that. When you take a look at the iconic brands in sports.
Yeah, Jeremy, appreciate the call.
All right, man. Hey, go Braves.
Go Braves. We'll have more time for phone calls coming up tomorrow, I know, as we'll get the Tuesday edition of WKXX Live on the air for you. Gerhard, day one with us. Man, it was, first of all, it flew by.
It certainly did.
But a lot of fun having you on here.
Absolutely. And I really, really appreciate it. You're kind of taking a chance on a relative radio newbie. And it's always been great to be on this show from a guest standpoint. And we've done some things in the studio here. But you're right. Number one, it flew by. I love this adventure. I'm really excited about everything moving forward and to help continue to grow and build what you've started here, what you've done a great job. And I just want to be the best team player I can be here. And so it's exciting. It's a great day one. But as you said, it's flown by.
It has. It has been a lot of fun, and we've done some TV work together. Mm-hmm. You allowed me as a high schooler in early college who knew nothing about television to work with you and do TV. We had the locker room together, did that on TV, and so. To now get a couple hours every afternoon to do what we love to do, talk sports. That's exciting.
It certainly is, and it's more of a freer platform. You know how TV the time constraints can be really tight on you, and you have to fit a lot of things into a very small window, and you have editing to do and whatnot. To have this forum where you can number one, speak your mind, but then also speak some opinions and also report the facts. And obviously it's a great time of year right now with so many things going on. And we talked about a lot of those today, and we will continue to do so over the coming days, weeks, and months. It's going to be really interesting. It's a really fun time, but I love this platform, and I can't thank you enough for having me on.
Absolutely. We'll be back with you tomorrow because we are 18 days away from high school football. We are 26 days away from JSU, 33 away from Alabama and Auburn and the rest of the SEC. So football season is upon us. We will continue to get you ready for high school and college football. And we got Braves baseball not on tonight. They're off today. They'll be back tomorrow in game 1 of 2 with the Phillies. 5:05 will be the airtime for the Ford leadoff show. And then at 6:20, they'll throw the first pitch tomorrow night between the Braves and the Phillies. And, of course, we will have that for you. Appreciate Frank's Roofing, our sponsors, All-American HVAC Service, bringing you all of our guests on the All-American HVAC Service hotline. That's going to do it for this Monday edition, day one of WKXX Live with Chase and Gerhard. We'll be back with you tomorrow from 2 to 4. Have a great rest of your Monday.
The delicious locally grown vegetables are coming in at S&S Farms on Chandler Mountain. S&S owner Jeffrey Smith continues the generations of offering up the finest vegetables you'll find anywhere. Round and Roma tomatoes,